So, okay. On internet, there are 27 million cat videos. Just a simple YouTube search on pizza recipes will give you 5 lakh results. If you search about losing weight on Google, you'll get 370 million results. Even if 25% of those are real, that's still 100 million pieces of content, blogs, videos, images, and articles. 19 lakh minutes of content goes on YouTube every hour. 40 lakh photos and videos are uploaded on Instagram every hour. 81 lakh photos and videos are uploaded on Facebook every hour. World's 23,000 TV channels produce 85,000 minutes of content every day. World's 7,000 newspapers produce 1,20,000 pages of content every day. We are not even talking about 570 million blogs, 623 million music pieces, Reddit, billions of videos on internet, Snapchat, Netflix, LinkedIn, vlogs, Spotify, Twitch, Messenger, newspaper, magazines, cinema, books, television, radio, and so much more content. We are getting bombarded by content every minute. The rate at which content is getting created has exceeded the rate at which content is getting consumed. What baffles me more is that this is going to increase 5 times in this decade itself. Just the US economy is going to lose, in fact, is losing $1 trillion every year because of inefficiencies that come into work because of content overload and loads of information. On the other hand, brands and creators are fighting this continuous war and trying to create the best piece of content out there, pouring in millions of dollars to catch hold of your attention. We wake up and there goes our mobile. The tens of unread emails, hundreds of WhatsApp messages, lot of tweets, Insta DMs, WhatsApp, and a lot of comments to reply. While we are checking all of them and we are replying them, we also think to go and check the news app and see what happened to the world while we were asleep. So now we are checking on the headlines. While you do that, an old friend of yours sends you a small YouTube video because it's a short one, you decide to click on it and you start consuming it. While you are doing all of this, in the background at your home, there's a radio which is playing and the RJ is throwing a lot of trivia and news. By this time itself, in the very first hour of you waking up, you have consumed more content than your grandfather did in an entire day when he was your age. But you'd say, hey, more content is good, right? So I run a festival to champion people to create more content. I push them day in and day out to create more pieces of content. And it's unlike anything that we have seen before. How did I stumble upon a topic like this about information and content overload? So I used to watch every piece of content which was made at my festival as a part of my job, which was roughly around 15,000 short films, 2,000 original music tracks, 6,000 scripts, and 5,000 spoken word pieces, and so many designs that I used to watch too. And this was over and above the regular content that I was consuming. It started harming me in ways that none of us in this room can think it can harm us. Just to give you a context, today we are consuming almost whatever content that we are consuming today in a single day is equal to the same amount of content that Neanderthals used to consume, the earlier humans used to consume in an entire lifetime, or what medieval age monks a couple of thousand years ago used to consume in an entire decade. It's getting chaotic in here. As much as we should celebrate this power of content creation and information being on our fingertips, we also need to acknowledge the chaos it is bringing. Content overload and information overload is one of the most neglected issues of our time, even though it affects us personally, our society, and our productivity. When was the last time you spoke to a friend of yours or a colleague of yours about a lot of information that you were consuming? In fact, a lot of you in this room didn't even realize that it was an issue until this very moment. It's not an issue, it's a crisis. How many of you have forgotten the password of your email inbox where you kept on staring at the screen just trying to remember the password, and then eventually you clicked on forgot password, entered the new password, and realized your new password is exactly same as your old password? Ever thought, why did this happen? That inbox is one of the really important things in your life. It contains information about your work, about your career, about your job, about your freelance, your tickets, everything. How can you possibly forget a password? Forgetting password of your email address or forgetting where you kept the keys is a classic case of overload of our brain's attention system because of so much of information that it is processing every moment. Constantly consuming content is like those dopamine shots that we keep giving ourselves. It's like effectively rewarding our brain for losing focus and searching for external stimulations that make us happy. Eventually our animal instincts kick in, so our brain starts going into this endless loop where it keeps consuming more content. So we keep on scrolling more because it's making us happy, right? And when the content and the information which is coming our way stops making us happy, it disappoints our expectation system, eventually leading to a negative reaction where we feel powerless, where we feel stressed and anxious. It's the reason that every day we feel tens of emotions which are unwanted and unnecessary. It's the reason that we feel constant mood swings basis the content that we are consuming. It's also the primary reason for a lot of mental health issues such as anxiety, feeling overwhelmed, feeling fatigue, and often feeling stressed. So I started reading more about this. I said, what is the science? Why does this happen? To understand why does this happen, how does information overload affect us, let's understand how did our brains evolve. For 2 lakh years that we have existed as modern humans, 98% of the times we were just hunter-gatherers. It's only in the last 5,000 years that our brains' neural connections started building up and the brain started enhancing itself. As hunter-gatherers, we had very limited information which was flowing in, which was largely limited to understanding what season it is or some simple recipes. But 5,000 years back, when we started living in civilizations, there was more information that started coming in. We had to remember the name of people. We had to remember the areas that were demarcated. We had to remember the sales transactions which were happening. We had to remember the barter transactions which were happening. And this was beyond our brain's capacity. So we started the next normal thing. We started writing things down to extend our brain's memory, right? Eventually, a couple of centuries back, we introduced newer mediums. So we introduced photographs, we introduced audio, we introduced videos, which essentially helped us to enhance our brain's capacity. Today, we are consuming 1,000 times more data than what we were consuming 5,000 years ago. But our brains haven't quite grown up. In an already stretched brain ecosystem, every time you are consuming new content or information, it's stretching the boundaries even further. Every new WhatsApp message that you get, every time you read a newspaper, every time you see an Instagram post, every time you watch news on TV, every time you hear a new song on radio, all of those are competing with limited resources in your brain with more important things, like when should I leave for college? What should I order for food? Should I call my best friend? What should I wear today? Or even basic life processes, like what to eat and when to sleep. Right? So you'd say, hey, Ritam, but our brains are also evolving, right? No, our brains have also evolved in so many years. Yes, our brains have evolved. But our brains do not renew themselves bottoms up. It's not like your dad had an i3 processor and you have an i5 processor. It's more like, if I have to draw an analogy, it's more like an old room, that we keep on renovating. Just imagine you are at one end of the room and on the other end there's a window. From your previous generations, they kept on parking more content next to the window. Next generation, you picked up more content, you picked it next to the window. And then with more content coming in, you packed essentially the entire room. And then one day, you realize that, hey, it's raining heavily and the window is going to leak and water is going to gush in. But you can't reach to the window because there's so much of content and information that you've kept in between. We are in that stage right now. Evolution is a slow process and our brains will take time to reach that process. Because our ancestors, hunter-gatherers, had limited things to do, what they had in abundance was something called attention, which helped them focus at one thing at a time. Because they were doing limited things like creating food, creating tools, and protecting themselves. Our brain currently functions between two states, wandering and attention. It's like a seesaw between two parts of brain. Because our ancestors had very few things to pay attention to, the seesaw was just moving a couple of times a day. The switching was very limited. We do it constantly tens of times every hour. And every time we switch between wandering and attention, there is a cognitive cost, processing power, which is required. And every time we do that, it throws us off from the original purpose. Attention is one of the most important resources for a living organism to even survive. In today's time, attention is almost like a currency. You have to fight the clutter of all that is happening to gain your attention, to earn your attention. And you have to be even more careful where you are spending your attention. And finally, after all the things that are happening around you, you decide saying that, okay, now I'm going to put all my attention into simple thing, in a single thing, and I want to just make the best out of it. You put all your attention and you are also able to. And suddenly, your mobile rings, bang. There's a notification from an app that you haven't used for 3 months. And now you're wondering whether you should read it, delete the notification, or delete the app. Just to recover from this interruption and focus your attention back is again going to cost you your processing power. Just imagine if it's changing so many things for us individually, how much is it affecting the families that we live in, and how much is it affecting the society at large. So to satisfy my thirst, I started speaking to a couple of people who believed in the power of content and information. And I realized that they told me that, hey, I can't give up on Instagram and Google Maps, but they also felt that their current relationship with technology, with information overload was unsustainable, to a point that if something didn't change really soon, it would break. So when I spoke to a lot of people, I figured out that our society's relationship with information overload is rather a complex one because it mixes harms with benefits, right? The same apps, the same media companies who are trying to gather your attention and pushing a lot of information your way are also connecting billions of people every day. They are some of the best innovations of mankind. And on the other hand, we are fed up of feeling like slaves to our devices. Now this creates a really jumbled emotional landscape in our head, where on one hand, we are really happy because we're sitting on the couch in an evening and we are able to know about a life of our friend who's living thousands of miles away just by scrolling on the screen, but we are fretting about the fact that we are not able to spend quality time with friends and family who are sitting in the very same room, right? We didn't even realize when did these changes crept in, when the information that was supposed to give you basic knowledge suddenly became an overload. It's almost like we never got a time to decide if we wanted this or not. We kept on enhancing technology so that it enhances our experiences, but just like Britishers, they ended up colonizing without us even realizing this. In 2022, collectively as a society, we consumed 5 times more information per person per day than what we consumed in 1990, just 30 years away. This started affecting a lot of our interpersonal relationships. The emotions that used to arise out of our social interaction, out of our face-to-face interactions, are now arising out of chat bubbles, captions, and comments, right? We are collectively full of so much decision-making that needs to happen between what's important information and what's not important, that we often feel very overwhelmed, and we make hasty decisions that impact not just us, but our people at home and office. So you would ask, Ritam, is there a way that we can minimize the information overload, or can we ignore it altogether? Or can we minimize this galaxy of information that is flowing to us all the day, every minute? I'd say no. But there are smaller steps that you can take which can save you from the impact. First of all, feel free to ignore information. Understand that you cannot be a Superman here. If all your friends are jumping on the new app which has come up, or if all of your friends are jumping on a trending video and they're sharing it, it's okay if you have not seen it. Don't feel guilty about it. You consuming content is not going to make any difference. Start prioritizing things out. Whenever you have something to take information inwards, find out if it's really important to you, if it's going to add value in your life, and give it the first priority. Almost 65% of information that we consume through internet, through newspaper, through books, through cinema, through films, through OTT series, almost 65% that, according to a research, is useless information. Which means if you spend 3 hours in consuming information in a day, almost 2 hours of those were wasted. It's true, just think about it. If we don't prioritize information right now, our brains will become like the junk drawer that we have in every house. Every house has that, Indian houses have that junk drawer where your mom, dad, siblings will keep on throwing every stuff. And the day you require the most important thing from your drawer, you'll have to actually empty it, and the thing that you're looking for would be the last thing that will come out. Something that you also need to start doing is divide your hours. Give yourself not more than 1 hour every day to consume content and information, unless your job is paying you to do that. There's a very widespread myth amongst us saying that the more information that we consume, the more content we watch, the more smarter we will become. No, it's a myth. It's only playing with your dopamine and adrenaline. Algorithms are designed to hook you onto your screens, because the content companies in the attention ecosystem know that they try to sell you the fact that their services are binary. Either you use them or either you don't. And once you sign up for their services, they'll take you for a ride well beyond the original purpose for which you signed up, well beyond the original number of hours you were going to spend on it, right? Something that I also do is mute, use this option of mute and snooze. Most of the operating systems and apps and platforms have this option of muting and snoozing, and these people are very smart, so they usually hide that option. It's like in the Nook, so if you go into iOS, if you have to mute, you have to like press 20 buttons to reach there, right? But ever since I realized that my attention is of my prime importance, I almost muted and snoozed all my apps, except for the delivery and the cab apps, because the information that they give me through notification is of some value addition, right? So every time now I pick up my device, I pick it up for a purpose, and I know that there won't be any distractions there. So use mute and snoozing often. Something that we also need to collectively stop falling is for the entire FOMO that is being created around us. The fear of missing out. A lot of young people around me, a lot of interns in my office, I see them continuously falling for FOMO that the content and media companies are creating for us. They are playing with your very basic human instinct of being social. They want you to be all caught up. They want you to continuously keep refreshing your feed. That's how algorithms are designed. Something that we also need to collectively understand is that we can't multitask. We can't do a live process and also consume information. You can't be crossing a road and also checking on your email. A lot of times we are sitting in a cafe and talking with friends and also scrolling our Instagrams. We are not wired to multitask. A human brain is not capable of multitasking. When we think we are multitasking, we are just switching between two tasks very rapidly. No, we are not multitasking. We are just switching. And every time we do that, again, it's costing us a lot of processing power. So it's like multitasking is not really good for us mentally or physically, but it's even worse for us for our productivity and cognition. So to wrap this up, I'll say something very simple. It's okay if you have not watched the trending video. It's okay if you're not on that trending app. It's okay if you consume content few days a week, and it's completely okay if you don't consume content at all. Platforms will come and go, and content will still get created, and none of them depends on how much and how often you consume content. Information overload also does a couple of things which I have not mentioned here, like throwing you off the perspective, feeding you with broken opinions, feeding you with false news, triggering impulsiveness, and making you feel lonelier than ever. So you ask me, hey Ritam, is there any way that collectively we can come out of this crisis? I would say the ship has sailed. All our information and content mediums, including the internet, which were meant to be democratic, ended up becoming capitalistic. It's only through our collective conscience, collective awareness, and individual actions, like a seat belt, that we can sail the ship in our control. Thank you so much.